Today's topic is the 3 lessons that I have learned from one of the hardest years of my life. And I wanted to do a episode about the lessons that I've learned recently because this has been a really freaking hard year for me. And there are so many of you that listen to this podcast that are new friends of mine that have met me after the podcast is launched. And you may find it surprising to hear that this has been a really, I'm talking, if I had to rate 0 to 10, how hard it was, 0 being this was a cakewalk, 10 being this sucked sour eggs. This year would be about a 97 on a scale from 0 to 10. And if you listen to me today, you think, well, how could that possibly be? You've got one of the top ranking podcasts in the world. You've come out of nowhere and are just crushing it, Mel. You seem to have it all going on. You're clearly a very positive person. How could this possibly have been the hardest year of your life? Well, you're seeing me after the hardest year. And, when you think about a lot of the kind of cheesy metaphors in life, it's always the darkest right before dawn. It's always hard right before it gets easy. And I think one of the things that's true about life is that life requires you to get lost right before you find yourself again. And I'm not going to lie to you. It sucks when you feel loss. It sucks when life is hard. There is nothing fun about it. I do not wish it on anybody. And I also know that it is unavoidable. That there are going to be years of your life that are absolutely amazing and delicious and easy. And they're going to just flow like water flows out of a faucet. And then there are going to be years like the year I just had that nearly suck you dry. It's like the hits just keep coming. And so I'm going to just at a top level tell you some of the reasons why this year was super hard for me. And even preparing to talk to you about this, thinking about what life looked like just over a year ago, I started to get emotionally triggered. Just talking about how hard it's been makes me feel stressed out again. So, let me just kind of go back, about a year. So a year from now, I was so burnt out. I had been running on adrenaline for years. The more successful I became, the more unhappy I was. For 2 years, I had been living separately from my husband and our son because we had raised our kids in Boston, and that's where my business was. And during the pandemic, remember that? During the pandemic, our son made this decision that he wanted to go to school in Southern Vermont. And so my husband and our son were living with my mother-in-law, and he was going to the public school 3 hours away from me in Southern Vermont. And I was down in Boston working. And so I was living alone. I was not near my husband and son. I would see them on the weekends. I was driving back and forth, and it was just beating me up. On top of that, there was some stuff going down at work that was super painful. I had somebody very close to me that betrayed me. I mean, they stole from me, they lied to me, and it had been going on for a while, and it all kind of blew up a year ago. And so here I am feeling lonely, feeling burnt out. I'm looking at a massive betrayal. And I don't know if any of you have ever had that experience where somebody deeply in your inner circle steals from you, lies to you, does something to you like that. But it just takes you to your knees. And I was super just unhealthy. I had not been exercising consistently. I was grabbing the alcohol to relieve the stress and loneliness. And I in preparing to talk to you about this today, I went back through my camera roll and back through my calendar. And, it's a wake-up call because you kind of forget how bad things are once you get through it. I mean, when you're in the soup of it, you feel like you're drowning in sludge. But when you get through it, it's almost like after you have a baby, you forget the pain of labor. Looking back at my photos from last year, seeing me so worn down, I looked so pale. I looked like a dolphin. You know how dolphins have gray skin? I had no brightness to my face. The life force was just drained out of me. And, that's just kind of the tip of the iceberg. I was in therapy. I was trying to sort stuff out, but I was just miserable. And if I'm being honest, I had been miserable for a while. I had just been pushing through. Life felt very hard. And I knew deep down that something had to give. I knew that I could not continue to go on living separate from Chris and Oak, going back and forth, feeling so burnt out, surrounding myself with friendships or relationships where I wasn't feeling supported. I was actually getting betrayed. And I knew I had to do something. And it may surprise you to hear me say, I just felt stuck. And I had all these excuses for why I had to keep going and all these excuses for why I, couldn't change things. And I also felt like this was getting done to me. I don't know if you've ever heard that quote that, life is happening for you. I hate that quote because I'm like, no, it's not. Life is happening to me. Don't tell me when my life isn't working that this is happening for me. Screw you. Well, then something happened. What happened is in December, I had a conversation with a really good friend of mine. And my friend's name is Pete Sheehan, and he's known me for a long time. And he said, Mel, you are more miserable than I have ever heard you. And I think that it's time that you truly get control of this, that you focus on your happiness, that you make some serious changes. And this brings me to lesson number 1. You ready? Lesson number 1 from the hardest year of my life is that your life is always trying to teach you something. You may not want to learn what it's trying to teach you, but your life is always trying to teach you something. Whether life is going easy, it's trying to teach you something. You know what life is teaching you when life is easy? It's teaching you what works. It's teaching you the habits and the kinds of people that make you feel good. It's teaching you what life working looks like. And you know what life is teaching you when life is hard? It's teaching you what is broken. It's trying to wake you up. And what I've learned the hard way, do not do what I did. I am so damn stubborn. Like if you think about life as a giant school, life is the greatest school you will ever attend. You can enjoy it, you can hate it, but life is always going to be school because life is always teaching you something. And do not make the mistake that Mel Robbins makes because I'm a very stubborn student. And what happens is if you don't get the lesson that life is trying to teach you, life just brings out the sledgehammer. And that's what happened to me. It just hit me over the head with a freaking sledgehammer. And so I want you to stop for a second right now. And I want you to think, what is my life trying to teach me right now? And here's a simple exercise that my friend Pete gave me. It's so dead simple, it's kind of nuts. You're going to take out a piece of paper. He said, Mel, take out a piece of paper. And I have my journal here. You can hear me like flipping it open right now because this is like what actually happened. December 21st, last year, I was speaking with my friend Pete Sheehan. I got to find the page here. I should have put a little, here it is right here. And he said, Mel, I want you to draw a line down the center of a page. And on the left-hand side, for the little ears, I apologize, but this is what it says, shit I hate. On the right-hand side, things I love. I want you to write down everything that is not working that you hate about your life. And here's a nicer way to say it. Where in your life do you feel friction? Where in your life do you feel friction? It could be in your body. It could be in your relationships. It could be at work. It could be when you look at your bank account. Where is life creating friction? It's hard. You're frustrated. Everything feels like a fight. This is where the lesson is, everybody. Friction is how your life teaches you to wake up and pay attention. Friction is where your life is trying to hit you with a sledgehammer, because life wants you to be happy. Life wants you to feel good about yourself. Life wants you to enjoy yourself. Life wants you to live in alignment with what's meant for you. And you see, when you feel friction, I felt friction in every single aspect of my life. I felt friction in my body. I felt friction in my mental health. There was not a place when I sat down to do this exercise, what do I hate? Where there was not friction. That's how bad it was. I wrote, I hate packing on a Sunday and leaving my family to drive home and be alone. I hate flying alone. I hate working alone. I hate being stuck somewhere and not being able to get home. I hate the fact that I feel like I've got to generate all the ideas and keep going and going and going, and that I can't stop. I hate feeling insignificant. I hate feeling disconnected. I hate feeling like I'm just going with no plan. I hate feeling disorganized and dropping balls and ADHD and lack of support on the administrative side of my life. I hate feeling overwhelmed. I hate having to set up technology. I hate never seeing my friends. I hate not knowing what's going on. I hate having nobody to handle things to. I hate that I feel like everything is a broken process. I hate working remote. I hate not knowing how everything I'm working toward is going to connect to something bigger. Wow, that's a lot of stuff that I hate. I hate my negative thoughts. It goes on and on and on. My list of things that were causing friction. I hate that I don't live with Chris and my husband. I hate that I don't see my friends. I hate that I'm constantly traveling in order to work. I hate the feeling of loneliness. It just goes on and on and on. Now, here's what's interesting. Life is trying to teach me something. And what my life was teaching me with a gigantic sledgehammer is that it's not working. It's not working. Wherever you have friction, there is either a broken process or a broken set of relationships, or there is something that is no longer aligned with you, or there are the wrong people around you. That's all that it is. And see, we get so attached to the way that things are that we don't get the lessons. And when you don't get the lessons, you close off what could be. And I'm here to tell you that you deserve to have a life where you don't feel friction every day. You're not wired to live a life where you feel that intense. And I can give you some other examples. Like, when our son was in the 4th grade, he would just explode when we had to sit down and do homework at night, like full on temper tantrums. You know what that is? That is friction in a young person's body. That is him feeling this deep sense that something's off. And when that happened for our son, and he would pound his head against the kitchen island and he would cry before he had to go to school, he didn't know what was wrong, but he was trying to teach us something. Life was trying to teach us something. His body intrinsically knew that something was off. And what turned out to be off is that the kid had profound dyslexia, profound dysgraphia, executive functioning, attention stuff going on, and he couldn't sit in the classroom and neurologically do what was being asked of him to do. And so I'm here to tell you, when you make this list of things that you hate, the areas of your life that create friction for you right now, that's where the lessons are. And those lessons will repeat until you learn them. Do not be stubborn. Do not look at the friction as if something's wrong. Look at the friction in your life as an opportunity to create alignment. as an opportunity to pull your life back into the other column, which is things that I love. And there was so much that I loved in my life. There was the therapy that I was doing. There was the time that I was spending with Chris and our son and building a house. There was all the new things we were working on. There was the podcast that was out in the future. All of this stuff. You got to walk toward the things. You got to do more of what's in alignment. But I'm telling you right now, the lessons are in the hard stuff. The lessons are in the friction. So that's lesson number one. Your life is trying to teach you something. It always is. Stop resisting the lesson. Because I have found in personal experience that if you refuse to learn the lesson, life will show up with a sledgehammer. When I look backwards now, I can see that I've been addicted to being busy for a long time. I can see that I needed to deal with this friction for a long time. It's just got louder and louder and louder to the point where I could no longer ignore it. I could also see looking backwards that I had often had people in my inner circle that were doing things like lying and betraying me. And I had ignored it. And I had made excuses for people. And so guess what? Those betrayals just got bigger and bigger and bigger until it was so painful that I had to finally learn the lesson. And so friction in your life is a good thing because friction wakes you up. Friction puts a spotlight on what's not working. And friction only builds everyone until you learn the lesson and you make a decision to turn toward it. Today's topic is the 3 lessons that I have learned from one of the hardest years of my life. Like, I'm talking, if I had to rate 0 to 10, how hard it was, this year would be about a 97.